I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, honestly. It's like something out of a bad soap opera, but it's my life and it's real. My name's Jake and I'm 32. I've been with my wife, Emily, for over 5 years now. We were never perfect, but I thought we had something solid. She's a few years younger than me, fiery, opinionated, and she always had that little edge that made her interesting. We're expecting our first kid. She's about 6 months along now, and honestly, I was finally starting to feel like I could relax, like everything was coming together. But the signs started creeping in a few months ago. Little things, her phone buzzing constantly, her being secretive about where she was going, her canceling plans last minute, but always claiming she was just busy with work or tired. I didn't want to overthink it, especially with the baby on the way, but I could feel something wasn't right. I caught her deleting messages on her phone more often, and she became more short-tempered, snapping at me over small things. I kept telling myself I was just paranoid, that maybe she was stressed or overwhelmed. Then came the night I found the first real clue. I'd been working late at the office, and when I got home, I noticed her phone was still on the couch. I didn't think much of it, but as I stood there, I saw a text pop up on the screen, something about meeting up at the cabin and not to tell Jake. My stomach twisted. Cabin. I didn't even know she was planning to go anywhere alone, let alone with someone else. I hesitated, then grabbed her phone when she wasn't looking. Her lock screen was a picture of her with her sister, but the message was what caught me. It was from someone named Mike, and it was flirty, suggestive, all about how they couldn't wait to be alone, how she loved the thrill of sneaking around. My heart started pounding. I felt betrayed, but I also felt numb. My wife, who I loved, planning secret meetings with my business partner. It didn't make sense at first, but the evidence was staring me in the face. I kept quiet that night, but I couldn't sleep. I kept going over everything, every sign I'd missed, every little argument or odd thing she'd said or done. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't ready yet. I needed to be sure. The next day, I started digging a little deeper, checking her messages when she wasn't looking, watching her behavior. She was acting weird, more defensive, more dismissive whenever I brought up plans she had, but she'd always insist everything was fine, that I was just overreacting. That's classic, I guess. Deny, deny, deny. The thing was, I could already feel my trust crumbling. I loved her, I really did. But I couldn't ignore the way I was feeling, like I'd been punched in the gut. The betrayal ran so deep, I wondered if I'd ever look at her the same way again. This wasn't just about cheating. It was about the fact that she'd been lying to me for months, maybe longer. She lied about her whereabouts, her plans, even about her feelings. All the while, she was secretly meeting with Mike, my own business partner. And what's worse is that I'm about to be a dad, and I feel like I've been blindsided by the biggest, most heart-wrenching betrayal possible. I don't know how or if I'll ever forgive her, but I do know that everything's changed now. I don't trust her anymore, and I don't think I ever will. After I found out about her texting and meeting Mike at the cabin, everything felt like it was crashing down around me. I stared at her phone, at the messages, trying to process what I'd uncovered. My hands were trembling and I could feel my chest tightening. How long had she been doing this? Was she planning to leave? The thought that she might just walk out after the baby was born, leaving me to pick up the pieces, made me sick. I waited for her to come home that evening, trying to keep my cool, but inside I was boiling. When she finally walked in, her face was a little too casual, a little too smug. She looked at me like I was just an annoyance. I couldn't stand it anymore. I told her I knew everything, about the texts, the meetings, the plans. Her eyes widened for a second, then she scoffed. "Oh, Jake," she said, rolling her eyes. "You're so paranoid. You think I'd cheat on you while you're out working all the time. Honestly, you're overreacting. Maybe I just wanted some excitement, some attention. It's not a big deal." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was lying through her teeth, brushing this off like it was nothing. I could see the contempt in her eyes, like she thought I was just some insecure fool. But I was. I was hurt, furious, and feeling completely betrayed. I told her I didn't believe her, that I had proof. She scoffed again, told me I was being paranoid, that I was just insecure because I was busy with work and stressed about the baby. She said she didn't owe me an explanation for texting Mike or meeting him at the cabin. That was when she dropped the bomb that made my blood run cold. "Honestly, Jake," she said, her voice dripping with disdain, "you're just too uptight. It's not like I'm leaving you. I'm just having some fun. Once the baby's born, I plan to leave you anyway. I've already been talking to lawyers and I'm planning to take everything." That's when I felt everything shift. I was stunned, unable to speak. Everything I'd built with her, all the plans, the future I'd imagined, all of it was crumbling. She'd been planning to leave me from the start with Mike, no less. I didn't even know what to say or do anymore. I was so angry I wanted to scream. But I kept my voice steady and asked her why she was doing this, why she was lying all this time. She just shrugged, looked at me like I was some kind of fool, and called me clingy and insecure. She told me I was overreacting, that I was making a big deal out of nothing, that I should get over myself. That night was a blur. I kept replaying everything, the texts, the lies, her cold attitude. I felt like I was drowning. How could she do this to me? To our baby. I'd always tried to be a good husband, to support her, to make her happy. And now I was sitting here feeling like I'd been punched in the gut, knowing she'd been lying to me, planning her escape behind my back. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let her get away with this, not after everything. I decided I'd confront her again the next day. But I also started planning. I needed to know what I was dealing with, how deep this all went. I couldn't trust her anymore, and honestly, I didn't even want to. I just wanted the truth, whatever it was. That was when I realized my life was about to change forever. All the stability I thought I had was nothing but a house of cards. And I was left standing there, feeling betrayed, angry, and heartbroken all at once. I don't know what's coming next, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. My mind was racing, trying to piece together everything I'd learned and figure out my next move. I knew I couldn't just confront her again without some kind of plan. I needed concrete evidence, something irrefutable, because I knew her. Emily was the type who'd deny everything, twist everything, spin her lies so well that even I would start doubting my own judgment. I decided to do some digging into her phone. I started looking through her messages, her emails, even her social media accounts. It wasn't easy, she was careful, but I was persistent. I found more texts from Mike, plenty of them flirting and planning their meetups at the cabin. There were also messages exchanged with some woman named Lisa, supposedly her friend, but I could tell they were code for something more. The way she texted them, the secretive tone, they were obviously hiding something. I also discovered that she'd been secretly booking trips, making arrangements to stay at hotels near the cabin, all without telling me. She was planning her escape, and she didn't care if I found out. Every new piece of evidence fueled my anger. How could she be so cold, so manipulative? She was lying about everything, even about her feelings for me. I felt like I'd been played for a fool. I knew I had to confront her directly, but I didn't want her to spin her lies again. I needed her to admit the truth, face the consequences of what she'd done. So I set up a plan. I pretended to be calm and composed when she came home that evening, but inside I was boiling. When she walked in, I looked her in the eyes and told her I knew everything about the texts, about the cabin, about her plans to leave. Her reaction was classic. She rolled her eyes, smirked, and said I was just overthinking, that I was paranoid and insecure. She claimed she was just talking to Mike because he was a business contact, that there was nothing going on, that I was reading too much into it. She even tried to blame me for not trusting her, saying I was the reason she felt the need to cheat. I didn't buy a word of it. I threw the evidence on the table and told her she was lying. I told her I knew about her booking the trips, the secret messages, everything. I saw her face change. She looked angry, cornered, but also defiant. Then she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You don't understand, Jake. I just needed some excitement. I don't love you anymore. I've been planning to leave after the baby's born, and this is just the beginning." That hit me like a punch to the stomach. She was admitting it outright. She was planning to leave me, to cut me out of her life, and she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak. My wife, who I was supposed to trust, had been cheating, lying, and plotting her escape for months. All the promises, all the "I love yous" meant nothing. I wanted to scream, to yell, but I held back. Instead, I told her she could go ahead and leave if she wanted, but I warned her that I'd fight for my rights as a father and the father of her child. I told her I wasn't going to be some clueless husband who got blindsided. I was done with the lies, done with the betrayal. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. I was hurt, furious, and feeling so betrayed I didn't recognize my own life. I kept thinking about the future. What kind of person does this? How could she be so selfish, so manipulative? I was about to become a father and I was supposed to be happy, but instead, I was drowning in this mess she created. I knew I couldn't fix this overnight. I also knew I'd have to make some tough decisions, but one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let her destroy what was left of our lives without a fight. Whatever came next, I had to be prepared. I had to protect my child, my dignity, and whatever shred of respect I had left for myself. The days that followed were a blur of planning, anger, and heartbreak. I couldn't sleep much, constantly replaying every moment, every lie she told, every sign I missed. I started talking to a lawyer, trying to understand my rights because I knew she was serious about leaving and I wasn't about to get blindsided again. She was relentless, calling, texting, trying to manipulate me into believing she was sorry, that she'd changed her mind. But I knew better. I saw through her bullshit now. She kept trying to spin it, insisting that she was just frustrated, that the pregnancy and everything else just made her feel trapped. She'd say things like, "You never listened to me," or "You're too controlling," whenever I confronted her. Her tone was bitchy, dismissive, like I was just some obstacle she needed to get rid of. She'd even go as far as saying I was holding her hostage, which made me want to puke. The woman I loved was turning into someone I barely recognized. I decided I'd confront her one last time face to face, but this time I was prepared. No more holding back. I told her I knew she'd been planning her escape for months, that I had all the evidence, and that I wasn't going to let her take everything from me without a fight. I told her I was going to file for custody of the baby and I was going to keep everything I could to protect myself. Her reaction was exactly what I expected. She called me a jealous fool, said I was paranoid, and accused me of trying to control her. She looked me in the eyes with that bitchy smirk and said, "You're just jealous because Mike's the one who's really good in bed. Honestly, you're boring. You're not enough anymore." That hurt worse than anything. I never thought she'd be so cold, so ruthless. But deep down, I knew that was just her act. She was trying to hurt me, to push me away so she could leave without feeling guilty. I looked at her and realized I couldn't stop her from leaving, that she'd already made her decision. But I wasn't going down without a fight. Over the next few days, I gathered every shred of proof I could find. I set up hidden cameras at the cabin just to catch her in the act if she went again. I also started talking to some friends, people I could trust, about what was happening. I needed support because I felt so alone in all this. My heart was heavy, and every time I saw her, there was a part of me that still hoped she'd come to her senses, but another part knew the truth. Meanwhile, she kept up her act of being sorry, but her actions told a different story. She continued to plan her departure, making arrangements with lawyers, secretly packing her things. I even found out she'd been looking into apartments nearby, as if she was already mentally checked out of our life. Every new piece of evidence made me more furious. I was furious at her, furious at Mike, and mostly furious at myself for trusting her so long. I realized that I had to be prepared for the worst. I couldn't let her take the baby and walk away without a fight. I knew I'd need to stand my ground, even if it meant risking everything I'd worked for. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared, scared of losing her, scared of losing my child, scared of what the future held. But I also knew I had to protect what little dignity I had left, so I made a decision. I wouldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I'd fight for custody, fight for my rights, and I'd make sure she understood that I wasn't going to be some passive husband who got betrayed and then just walked away. I might be hurting, but I was going to be strong. I was going to do what I had to do to survive this, even if it meant losing her. Because at the end of the day, I realized it's not just about her cheating or leaving. It's about respect, about standing up for myself, and about making sure my child knows what real love and loyalty look like. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I spent every day trying to hold myself together, but inside I was a mess. I had hired a lawyer and started the custody process, knowing that she was going to fight me every step of the way. Emily kept up her act of being remorseful, sending me fake apologies and saying she loved the baby and wanted to work things out. But I saw through her facade now. Her words were hollow, just another way to manipulate me into backing down. She was still sneaking around, making secret calls and trying to hide her plans. I installed a few cameras at the cabin just to catch her if she went again. I knew she'd be desperate to keep her affairs hidden, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Every time she left, I'd check the footage, watching her meet up with Mike or Lisa or whoever she was seeing behind my back. It was like watching a nightmare unfold in real time. One night, I caught her red-handed. It was late, and I had the camera app open, expecting her to slip up. Sure enough, I saw her sneaking out of the house, meeting someone in the woods. The footage showed her in a heated, intimate embrace with Mike. I felt my stomach drop. Seeing her actually cheat on me with someone I'd trusted was like a punch to the gut all over again. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. At least now I knew the truth. She could deny it all she wanted, but the evidence was irrefutable. I downloaded everything, every moment she thought she was hiding, and I knew I had what I needed for the custody fight. The following day, I confronted her again. I told her I knew about the night at the cabin, about her sneaking around behind my back. Her face twisted into that bitchy smirk, and she tried to deny it, claiming I was just accusing her out of jealousy. But I played her footage right there on my phone. Her eyes widened, her face drained of color. She started yelling, calling me crazy, telling me I was obsessed. She said I was ruining her life, that she deserved happiness too. I told her I wasn't going to let her destroy what was left of our family, that I'd fight her for custody, for everything. She looked at me with pure disdain and spat. "You're just a control freak, Jake. You don't deserve this kid. Once I'm free, I'll make sure you never see him again." That was the moment I realized she was serious. She planned to run, to keep the baby away from me, to erase me from her life entirely. I felt a cold rage rise inside me. I couldn't let her do that. I knew I had to act fast. I contacted my lawyer, started preparing for court, and made sure I had everything I needed to prove her unfit. Meanwhile, she kept pushing the narrative that I was the bad guy. She'd call her friends, cry, play the victim, trying to turn everyone against me. But I didn't care. I knew the truth, and I had the evidence to back it up. Every lie she told, every manipulation she tried to pull, it all fell apart under the weight of what I had collected. The thing that hurt the most was knowing she'd never loved me the way I thought she did. She was planning her escape the whole time, using me and our unborn child as pawns. It was a devastating realization, one that made me question everything I'd ever believed about her. But I also knew I had to stay strong, for the kid, for myself. I couldn't let her get away with this, not without a fight. So I kept pushing forward, preparing for the court date, gathering more evidence and trying to keep my emotions in check. Every day was a battle, one part heartbreak, one part rage, one part determination. Because at the end of it, I knew I couldn't let her take my child away, not without a fight. And I wasn't going to stop until I made damn sure she understood that she couldn't just lie, cheat, and manipulate her way out of this. The court date finally arrived after what felt like an eternity. I was exhausted emotionally but determined to fight for my rights as a father. Seeing Emily in that courtroom, still pretending to be the victim, was almost laughable. She tried to spin her lies, claiming I was controlling, that I was paranoid, that she only met Mike because she was bored and stressed. But I had all the evidence. The texts, the secret recordings, the footage from the cabin. The truth was glaringly obvious, and I knew it. During the hearing, I stayed quiet at first, letting my lawyer lay out everything. I presented the evidence, showing her sneaking out at night, her plans to leave, her manipulative messages. When it was her turn to speak, she tried to gaslight the judge, acting like I was just some jealous husband making a big deal out of nothing. But I felt no pity. I knew what she was capable of, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. In the end, the judge granted me primary custody of the baby, citing her pattern of deceit and her plans for abandonment. Emily's face twisted in rage, but she couldn't deny the truth anymore. She stormed out, her bitchy attitude turning into full-blown fury. As she left, she threw a parting shot. "You'll regret this, Jake. You're just a control freak, and I'll make sure you never see our kid again." That moment was a mix of relief and anger. I'd won the legal battle, but I knew the emotional war was far from over. I'd protect my son, I promised myself that. I'd raise him with honesty, loyalty, and love, things Emily had consistently shown she was incapable of giving. As I sat in that courtroom watching her walk away, I felt a weight lift but also a deep sadness for the marriage I'd lost, for the trust I'd shattered and the future I'd thought was certain. Now I'm here, alone but stronger. I have my son, and I'm committed to being the best father I can be. The betrayal still stings. Every time I see her in my mind, I remember the lies, the betrayal, the way she used me. But I also realize I've learned something vital. Trust is fragile, and the truth always comes out in the end. I won't let anyone manipulate or hurt me like that again. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but I also know I can't change the past. All I can do now is move forward, protect my son, and be better for the future. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. Don't ignore the red flags, don't let anyone treat you like an option, and never be afraid to stand up for yourself, even if it costs everything. Because in the end, you have to be your own hero, and I am.